Hey, Bramborough back with some Grand Tactician Civil War, our CSA campaign in the 1.06 beta. Okay, well, I have a fair amount to talk about, but right here at the start, before I do that, I want to run time just a little bit. And the reason for that is because when you first load up the game, yeah, things are kind of frozen. I find a lot, and a lot of economy things aren't quite right. You know, the credit rating may or may not be quite right. Ports aren't blockaded, and so the game just needs to run a little bit to kind of get everything back on track the way they are supposed to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to run for a little while. Matter of fact, we're right here at the end of September. I'm going to go ahead and run it to October 1st, so that we've also got another econ and intel report to have a look at. And so, at least for right here at the very beginning, we'll just the Battle of Frankfurt has just occurred, and this was that Mansfield, I think, has just suffered a defeat and should be retreating here, still fighting a rearguard action. And we'll just see which way it goes. When you first come out and run time, the armies initially don't move at all, and I think they do that just to account for the time that ran during the battle. Army of Indiana over here, 7,500 men. Okay, there he goes. And okay, he's going south. Didn't really expect that. That's a Confederate. He shouldn't be going to Harrodsburg. Shouldn't be going to Somerset or Munfordville. I think he's just trying to find a route, and he's going to loop around at some point somewhere. Okay, where are you going to go now? Yeah, see? He's trying to find a retreat route. Army of Indiana looks like they're going, you know what? I bet this guy's going to Evansville. Okay, Mansfield's like, okay, I can't go that way. I gotta go back north. Sometimes I see these little paths of where they have come from. Often I don't. I don't quite know why that happens like that. Okay, and now we don't see the Army of Indiana anymore, but they're kind of headed down toward Evansville. Can't say I blame them. If I was AI Union, I wouldn't like a little chunk of Indiana going away either. Okay, now Mansfield's like, oh, I need to go this way. And he is not going up to Maysville. So he's probably coming up here. It's one of these two IIPs, the Covington Ferry or the Roebling Bridge he's headed for. Okay, we're at October 1st. I'm going to go ahead and stop. Okay. First thing I want to mention is just kind of a very general, high-level topic, not really about this campaign per se. A little bit of not negativity, because it's not negative. But I'll say a little bit of criticism has kind of crept into the theme of this campaign over the past couple of episodes. From myself, very much included, and then some of the comments that are made. And again, not negative, more some criticism of the game and a little bit of frustration. And I would like to get away from that. At least, I mean, I intend to get away from that a little bit. Y'all can say what you want in the comments. And a lot of that, some of it has to do with the new patch and costs of stuff, and then some of it has to do with criticism of the game's AI, both at the campaign and the tactical level. This patch is not focusing on the AI. It just isn't. I think there may be one or two very small things in there, but in large part, that's not what they're doing this time around. And there has been criticism, very valid criticism. Okay, I am not pushing back against that, and I've said many of the same things of the AI throughout this game's history. And then even more specifically with this patch, it kind of feels like the AI is taking a step back. And I'm talking primarily the campaign AI in that case. I think that a lot of that may have to do, it would make sense, that, the devs have this is a huge update, and it is complex. And players are, having issues. I certainly am anyway, just trying to figure it out. Well, so's the campaign AI, and I don't know that they've done very much, if anything, with the campaign AI to help them with that. So, it stands to reason that any degree to which the players are having trouble or finding challenges in figuring out, okay, how do we play the game now? Well, the campaign AI is having that same problem tenfold. So it's just kind of, it is what it is right now. And I don't know that there's really much productive about lingering on that. I think that the devs have to be pretty well aware that this is an issue. And I am not at all saying this is the plan or what's happening. They don't call and tell me, hey, this is what we're going to do with the game long term. But I got to think, they have they're doing a lot with the game. This is a huge change here. I don't know what else they have planned beyond that, other than just knowing that there is going to be more beyond that. And if I were trying to map out how I'm going to fix a game up like that, I think that I would want to kind of get everything else set, get the economy the way I want, get the units the way I want, get the, just get all the mechanics in a final form. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Get all that done, and then it's kind of the last major change, because it is the most complicated and it's the one that really needs everything else in place. Okay, now we're going to take a crack at trying to make this AI as good as we can. If they were to work on trying to create the final answer on the AI earlier than that, then every update that they do afterward kind of moves the goalposts again. And then they have to keep tinkering with it and tinkering with it and tinkering with it. So I think it makes sense to me that, okay, the AI is going to suck, or is what it is for the time being, and then once we get everything else in place, now let's fix the AI. Is that what's actually going to happen? I don't know. Is that their plan? I don't know. But that is a kind of a sequence of events that makes sense to me. And so it may be more of a hope than an actual expectation, but I think there is pretty significant hope that eventually they're going to get this game to where it should be. And I'll throw out there, there are better games at the tactical level. And there are probably some better games, or at least as good games, at the campaign level, the strategic level. I am not aware of any other Civil War game out there that is trying to be both. So at very least, one has to acknowledge the ambition of what Grand Tactician Civil War is trying to be. And even to some extent already is, but they're close. I mean, the elements are in place. It just needs to all gel to finally get there. And I think they're trying to do that. And anyway, I have said enough about that. So moving forward in this campaign, I'm going to try to talk less about, crappy AI, and more about just, kind of taking it for what it is and just playing the game as it's presented. Okay. So with that in mind, over the past couple of episodes, just to use this as an example, right? Brought Johnston up here and to Louisville, had, kind of was at a loss on how we're going to handle supply up in here. It's pretty clear that we can't just spam supply depots all over the map the way we used to. And to be honest, I'm not sure we were ever really meant to do that. I think maybe, a major supply depot for an army of several corps, it should be expensive, I guess. It's a way. I think we have to look at other ways. And there's been some excellent commentary on that topic from one of our frequent commenters, and so I've, and the basic gist of it was, we can't play the game the way we used to. We have to play it differently when it comes to logistics and supply, and it had some really good ideas in there. And so I've taken that. It was an episode or two ago. If you guys want to go look, it's worth reading. It's a nice write-up. So I took some of those ideas, and then I've been ruminating, kind of pondering how I want to proceed. And this is what I've kind of settled on, what I want to try. First things first, I am not going to abandon it completely, but at least for now, I'm going to put the secession of Missouri on a back burner. And part of that is, kind of like I've decided I'm not going to take Washington. I'm trying to keep the Union in the game. And not just because I want this campaign to last longer, because I want us to kind of see more of how these things work out over time in 1.06. And that's part of it. But another thing is I'm looking at the map here. I think that Cairo, Illinois is more important than St. Louis is to us right now. And the reason for that is, look at this. This river all the way up, the Mississippi and the Ohio. I think I sometimes kind of think too much and kind of over-focus on the railroads as the primary conduit of trade, of supplies, and that's not wrong. They are. But rivers are too. Not quite as much as railroads, but way, way better than roads. If I remember correctly, railroads increase the transport values and the volume of trade and supply for IIPs by 10 times. You know, like over here. Let's assume that for whatever reason, Gaysville and Cassville, all else being equal, just had the same exact goods, same supply, same demand. Well, Cassville, sitting on this railroad, will have 10 times the throughput of Gaysville, which is not sitting on a railroad. Okay. Rivers provide 5x. Okay, so we've got a natural supply and trade highway running all the way up through here. In the crux of it, Cairo, Illinois. Right? Now, initially, I ran over here and I grabbed Evansville because Evansville controls some of this Kentucky IIP stuff in here. That's why I got it. But Evansville also gives us control of a chunk of the Ohio River, as does Louisville. And pretty soon, as will Covington. So my idea is I really want to lock down Kentucky and open up the trade and the supply conduits running into Kentucky. Some of which is provided by railroad. You know, we've got this railroad running right up through Nashville to Louisville and to Covington. But these rivers can help out a lot as well. And I want to really completely bring Kentucky under Confederate control, really consolidate our hold on it, and lock it in as a loyal Confederate state, which it already is, but bring that state support up. Right now it's sitting at 65%, and I think, which has actually fallen. It was right when we initially took Louisville, it was sitting at 75%, and it has dropped, and I think that's because parts of Kentucky still remain under Union control. There's been fighting in the area. Fighting in the vicinity, I think, impacts IIPs. Right? So I really want to lock Kentucky in as a priority before worrying too much about Missouri. I'd also kind of like to get this little bit of Virginia under our control as well. So I am thinking Covington, Marietta, Ohio. We already have Evansville, although it is kind of looking like we may not have it much longer. And Cairo, Illinois. And kind of, firmly establish Kentucky within the Confederacy and the Ohio as an undisputed Confederacy-controlled river. I'm not interested in holding territory in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, per se. What I'm interested in is a 100% control of Kentucky and a 100% controlled Ohio River. So how am I going to do that? Well, while I'm talking about the rivers, I want to talk about something else. It's kind of tied in. We have this, so now, if we have this big conduit, what's going to be moving on it? If we zoom in just a little bit here, there are a buttload of plantations and farms all the way down through here. More plantations than farms, really. Now the plantations, these are producing cash crops. These are essentially trade goods. These are flowing down the river to New Orleans, and also via probably some rail into Mobile and Biloxi. Okay, and we've talked before about trying to keep this area clear of blockade as our, as a single port. No, our biggest single port is up here in Virginia. But as a group of ports, this is a pretty big clump of outgoing trade, keeping them clear. And this is where that cotton is going out. Not just cotton, but also tobacco, rice, and sugar. Is where that stuff is going out to improve our exports. The farm stuff, now some of that, is going to be part of outgoing trade as well. But the livestock and the wheat or grain, flour, which, oh, by the way, I think it might be a good idea to maybe plop a flour mill or two along in this area. That can flow up the river into these IIPs up here in Kentucky along the river. The fact that we really can't spam a lot of supply depots anymore, I think means we need to think more about using the IIPs as a bigger, think more about what they contribute to the supply of the armies. So one way to get a whole bunch of stuff to Johnston's army is to upgrade this, build supply depots and upgrade them, and we know that's pretty expensive. But another factor is increasing the flow of those desired items, which include food and ammunition and clothing and so forth, into IIPs in the area where the army is operating. So that's another reason why I want to get this river firmly under our control, so that we can then increase the throughput of those items into here. Cities themselves are not an IIP, which I think is a little strange, but they aren't. However, every one of these cities almost always has one or two little IIPs just right next to it. Like Louisville has got this port and this ferry. Covington at least has this little Covington ferry right here. So even though the cities themselves aren't formally part of the infrastructure, they are. They've got stuff around them, that is. Including sometimes some little towns, like Corydon here. And so if we can increase this throughput up here, the IIPs in the area will be able to supply more to our armies, in addition to supplementing our few supply depots. Another advantage of kind of establishing this Ohio line through here is, armies do have mechanics that I am the first to admit I, in the past, have really not used as much as I probably could have. But let's say that Johnston is sitting somewhere around here and we got a little bit of a supply issue, right? He can pop across the river and come sit up here by Paoli or Vernon, or, well, maybe not quite that close because those are Confederate IIPs. But he can kind of come up here into Indiana. Not to take territory, not even necessarily looking for a fight. But he can kind of sit up here somewhere in Union territory and go into raid mode. And that hugely lessens how much we have to supply to him, because a lot of his supply is now coming from living off the land. Okay, and some historical examples of that would be, in 1863, Lee took the Army of Northern Virginia up through here into southern Pennsylvania. Now, part of that was strategic, and he's wanted to threaten Washington and northern cities and all that sort of thing, and just basically be a pain in the ass. But a big piece of that was because this area all through here was not touched by the war yet, whereas central northern Virginia had just been ravaged for 2 years. And even if there weren't fighting going on around here anymore, the capacity of the region to support the army had been badly depleted. So he wanted to give this area a rest. Give them a couple of months to, without armies around. And just let the population, grow their crops and raise their pigs. And so we came up here and saying, let the northern population feed an army for a while. And then kind of a similar case, after taking Atlanta, Sherman comes all the way down through here to Savannah and then up into South Carolina, basically doing the same thing. It broke the tether to the supply infrastructure and you get the idea. So in game, we can do the same thing with raid stands. We can come up here into Indiana or up into Ohio or into Illinois and do the same thing. Okay, so that's a little bit of the strategy that I'm thinking about. Now, the forces to do that. Okay, so these two armies are pretty much going to stay pretty much in this area, right where they are. And like I said, I'm not going to take Washington, and I'm not going to. So they're going to operate in this area, and they're going to be pretty much defensive. I'm thinking this army, which is still very small, but I think is going to grow here pretty soon. I'm kind of thinking that they cover the area, say, from Marietta all through here to the Cumberland-Winchester area. And there's a railroad that facilitates them bopping back and forth through here as well. Kind of using Grafton, I think, as a base. Johnston... Okay, I think he's going to pretty much stay operating in this Louisville, Lexington, Covington area. And for the time being, I think Price is going to stay in southern Missouri. I don't think I'm going to have him run up to capture St. Louis now. At least not until Cairo is taken. And then we have the same thing right now. If we have Cairo, if that's Confederate, we have both rail and river connection up to St. Louis, right up the Mississippi. So I think even if I did want to press Missouri secession, I think taking Cairo first is a natural first step from a logistics standpoint. So for now, I think Price's main job is to keep these two, there's two now, keep these two federal armies from causing too much mischief. I think I might run them over here just seeking a battle and trying to make the Army of the West retreat up in this direction and get it away from Cairo. That leaves a gap. There's an enormous gap here between Price and Johnston. I think I need another army of about the same size as these to operate in this Cairo, maybe Evansville area. Right? So I'm kind of thinking basically 5 fronts. A Northern Virginia front along the Potomac into the Shenandoah. A Western Virginia front here. An Eastern Kentucky front along the Ohio in here, covered by Johnston. A Trans-Mississippi front, covered by Price, somewhere in this area. And then we need a Western Kentucky front, basically Cairo and Evansville. In each one of these fronts, I think we have that expensive built-up base with a supply depot. and maybe a fort even, and maybe a news agency for intelligence, and a market for improving the transport capacity in the area. Right? We've already kind of started building that in this Northern Virginia area. We have a hospital here, and a hospital too for casualties treatment. We've already kind of got that sort of here already. There's a supply depot, there's a hospital. Could kind of do the same thing here at Grafton. We kind of already have a supply depot kind of close to it, which is finished now. That's good. As soon as Garnet gets some more men, I'll move them right back up in here and establish control over this line. Maybe even come over here and grab Marietta, Ohio. Louisville, I think, is the natural spot for Johnson's army, if for no other reason than there's already a supply depot here. We don't have to build one. A little bit looser for price. There's no obviously good spots other than St. Louis itself. But there are supply depots through here, which the Union has helpfully built for us. And he can kind of, I'm thinking at least for the short term, maybe just run them up here and use this Union supply depot, what is currently a Union supply depot, for a while, letting this one fill back up, right? And he can kind of bounce between the two. Matter of fact, he may even be able to sit just right here, and as long as this one is still considered Confederate control, he could even draw from both of them. Anyway, that's kind of the concept I've been thinking about as I'm looking at the map, thinking about the new mechanics. Talked a lot about that. I did want to point out one other thing. I talked about farms down in here. Most of these are plantations, really. Well, that's interesting. That's a plantation, but it's not called plantation. It's called Hard Times. Interesting. What plantation owner is going to name his plantation Hard Times? And that's kind of weird. There are some farms in here, but maybe we should build a couple more down along this way. And we'll look at workforce and fertility for that. Maybe some up in this area. If we look at fertility for crops, it's pretty good all the way through here, as it should be along the Mississippi River. Maybe just build some more farms right up in this area. I mean, kind of the whole idea is consolidating it and not letting it go back. So that may be a good idea. But these buildings in the economic company applications in this menu, they're pretty expensive, just like the federal buildings are. But these can be built with subsidies. And it turns out that, like right now, if we wanted to just pop a farm with our available budget, that's going to cost $2.5 million. But some other folks, and I haven't personally seen this, but some other folks are saying this is way, way, way more expensive. If you let the subsidy bar fill up, it'll be like 20% of that cost. And we can plop a farm for $500K. Which is exactly what it says. A funding of $500K in agriculture subsidies is needed. And that, that same dynamic works for all of these. So I'm kind of thinking, let the subsidies roll and use that to get some farms out there. Maybe a mill. I think we have plenty of plantations already. And I should look around and try to figure out better what exactly Saltworks does for us. I think maybe that's got to feed into food production for provisions, but I'm not 100% sure. Now, using the subsidies that way does not work for these federal buildings. These cost what they cost, right? I mean, the idea here is that we're using government subsidies to assist private companies. With these, it's just straight up, you're building a government facility, right? There's no subsidy to fill up and make a hospital less expensive, or a news agency, or a prison camp. Interestingly, though, Military Academy conceivably could go on the other one, because like VMI and the Citadel, those were established before the war. They're private colleges. Look, let me back off on that. I'm not sure about that. They were not established by the Confederate States government. I know that. They were pre-existing. However, they may have been established by state government. So let me back off that statement and not say something inaccurate. Okay, I've talked enough about the overall strategy and supply and farms and all that kind of stuff for quite a while now. There was a comment in one of the recent videos. Someone picked, I think in the last video, and some viewer, pretty sharp-eyed, had picked up that there is, I think it's in Johnson's army, there is a cavalry unit using mixed muskets, and I'm pretty sure that is McIntosh's Cav. And the question was, is this new in 1.06? Can we give muskets to Cav? And the answer is no. This is a one-time thing. This unit started the campaign for whatever reason. The game just gives it mixed muskets. There may be one or two other cases of something like that in some of the other starts, but no, we cannot give mixed or any other type of infantry small arms to Cav brigades. If I were to change this guy to mixed Cav weapons and then try to change him back to mixed muskets, I don't think it would let me. But I don't know that. I'm tempted to try it just to see if it does. But I'm not going to, because A, I don't think it will, and B, because mixed muskets are 250 yard range and mixed Cav weapons are 200 yard range. And so basically if I tried that little experiment, I'm 99% sure I would just be gimping. I mean, these aren't great, but for a Cav unit, yeah, I'm just going to keep them at 250 yards range for now. Anyway, so that's the answer to that. That's just a weird little one-time thing. That is not a change in 1.06. The Arkansas mounted rifles came with mixed muskets even before 1.06. As far as I know, they've always done that. It's just a game start thing. Okay, POW camps. We've talked about this a number of times. We saw at the end of the last episode where's that camp? It is here. Where we had taken enough prisoners, where we had overcrowding, which increases state support in the north, and we didn't want that, so I paroled them. And then, so the question, and when we parole, it's an all or nothing thing. You can't just parole the excess. You have to empty the camp. Parole the entire thing. And so I am pretty sure that the way to go is to have multiple prison camps. so that you can hold most of your prisoners, but when you run into overcrowding, you just empty one of them, preferably a small tier 1 POW camp. So I'm going to build more prison camps. Another viewer caught, I did not, but before I upgraded this thing, when I was hovering over the upgrade button, that button did tell us that it would upgrade from 1,000 to 2,500. That's what we're going to get at tier 2. And I am pretty, so that kind of increase pretty much means that most likely a tier 3 POW camp will be 5,000. We'll see when we get there. Well, it was 1.5 million to build the thing. So basically that was a $1,500 build cost per prisoner. It was 2.8 million to upgrade it, bringing the total cost, 1.5 plus 2.8 is, oh, here we go, Bram doing math in public, 4.3 million to get to a 2,500 capacity. Bottom line, the build cost per prisoner is going in the wrong direction. It is not economical. You actually wind up, a tier 2 means you have spent more than $1,500 per prisoner. So, unless these things are changing, okay, for the time being, in the way that this game is right now, I don't think that upgrading POW camps is the way to go. It appears that at least for the moment, if you're going to do the POW camp thing at all, which is a completely separate question, if you're going to do it, build multiple tier 1s. That is, I'm not telling you what to do. That is what I think I intend to do. So given that, I'm going to build some more POW camps. And we know that they need a little bit of workforce, a little bit of supply. And if I'm looking at one POW camp, I'm probably looking at others too. So I don't think we need them spread all over the Confederacy. I kind of want to keep them close. So I'm thinking maybe a POW camp up here near Madison. So, I want them in a workforce area fairly close to a railroad. So, I'm going to build one up here. And how about one kind of over here by Talladega? Which works, right? That's a good spot because later, after the war, much after the war, they'll have a really nice spot here to go pour in all the drunks after the NASCAR races. So I'm going to do that. That way, next time we run into overcrowding, I can empty one of the camps and keep the ones in the others. Now that still is only. It'll be a little higher because I am upgrading the Columbus one. But that's still only going to be 4,500 capacity. And one of these camps is going to kind of act as a safety valve, and it's going to be routinely getting paroled all the time. I'm going to build one more, and I'm going to do it. It can be a little bit further away. How about somewhere down here? That'll work. Right here on the Florida-Alabama border here. Okay, that's enough of that. I hasten to add, I don't know if it's a good idea to do that. I am skeptical that in its current state that pursuing POW camps at all is a cost-effective idea. I don't think it is. But, you know, it's kind of an experimentation campaign, and so that's what I'm doing. Right. Next. Let's talk a little bit about the Navy. I've talked about the Navy a little bit already. About the trade node thing and the blockade thing, which now that, yeah, okay. That's one reason why I ran time, because when you first start up, before you run time, no ports are blockaded anywhere. It takes the game a little while to reblockade everything. First, we sent some more ships up here. Yeah, they've arrived. They're on station. Now that there's 6 ships, they're all small, but now that there's 6 small ships, not 2 small ships, what kind of percentage are we getting now? 18%. Yeah, okay. So he'll continue improving his perk. Once he gets his perk slot open, it'll be several episodes, I'm sure. And we'll see, bring him back over here and blockade trade nodes. Okay, now our blockade, meaning the Union's blockade against us. Quite a few ports getting blockaded. Okay, it took him a while to get to Cedar Key, but he's got, he's blocking it by quite a bit. He's not doing Apalachicola, though. There's one thing I forgot to mention when I'm looking at the broad economic strategy. We've got markets down all through here, and now this may have been kind of reddened up a little bit already because of the ports, but I think maybe markets may be influencing this as well. Yeah, Savannah. I don't think I did it. I don't think I did a market at Wilmington, but I'm kind of thinking, you know, there's kind of a natural corridor that somewhat follows the telegraph line. You know, kind of anchored maybe Vicksburg, Jackson, Montgomery, Macon, Atlanta. You know, all up through here, and there's a little bit of trade activity going all the way through here. So I'm kind of thinking, you know, this is kind of like a trunk, not just for telegraph, but for trade, internal trade. And there's a little bit of activity along this route. So I'm thinking of kind of reinforcing that with a few markets through here in some of the cities where there's already some trade going on, and increase it with markets. And markets actually aren't all that much compared to a lot of the other buildings. So I'm kind of thinking maybe some markets. Let's do one at Vicksburg. Let's do one at Montgomery, which makes sense. It's our capital anyway, right? Interestingly, Milledgeville IIP is doing more trade than Macon is. Okay. Just got to put a market over here. Put one here near Augusta. I'm going to do one more. Charlotte. Yeah, I'll put one here at Charlotte. And I said I'm only going to do one more, but I lied. put one up here by Richmond. Frankly, seems a little bit odd that there wasn't one already. And this isn't just about trade on its own, but also kind of this route all the way through here. You know, because what markets do is increase transport capacity of local IIPs. So I'm kind of thinking that this creates like a little trade highway all the way down through here. And then later on, already talked about, you know, using the rivers as a trade and supply highway. So I'm kind of thinking maybe some all along through here as well. Matter of fact, already looks like Louisville would be a pretty good spot. The trade is actually up in this area, but yeah, I'm not going to do it yet. But anyway, so back to the Navy. We know that there's a blockading squadron right about here, and it is, turn that trade off. It's currently blockading Biloxi, but for whatever reason it's not placed well, and it is not blocking Mobile or New Orleans. But I think I'm going to I'm not going to wait for that big squadron of frigates. I'm going to go ahead and use these three little fleets and start popping that blockade squadron. They will lose, right? They're not going to beat that squadron, but they'll wear down its readiness and maybe cause it to stop blockading and maybe even just go off station to go repair. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it now. And depending on how that goes, I'm kind of expanding my ambitions a little bit in that regard. And if they can kind of make this fleet go away, maybe I'll sail them over this way and do the same thing to this other fleet off Galveston. And then come on over here and do the same thing to this fleet here that is blockading Cedar Key. So I'm kind of thinking of using these fleets and maybe building one or two more like this to maybe keeping the entire Gulf Coast as close to blockade free as I can. Now a lot of these little ships are going to get sunk, so I'm going to need some ships to replace those. With that in mind, I am going to build some fourth-rate steamers, just because they're cheap. They're cannon fodder. But I think I'm going to also build some double enders, which are also small. They're not armored, but they're pretty well armed. You know, basically it's a crappy little steamer like the other ones that mounts some pretty nice firepower on it. So I think I'm going to build some of those as well. And then finally, for that shipbuilding program that I probably can't afford, but I'm going to do it anyway because, hey, I just am. What I typically do in a lot of campaigns is I build a lot of little bitty fleets that are not intended for combat. They just kind of like fan out along the rivers to help the intelligence picture. And I haven't done that in this campaign yet. I had enough little crappy ships to do that, but I was holding them back with an idea toward this blockade and raiding fleet up here, and that's where most of them have gone. I think I've got 2 or 3 left. So I still need to put out my little river scouts, and that ties in really well with kind of this riverine strategy along the Ohio that I talked about earlier, maybe some up towards St. Louis as well. For the purpose intended, I don't need anything other than just a ship, right? And a crew with some eyeballs on it. I don't even really need them to have guns because I don't expect them to win any fight that they do happen to get into. But, you know, the game doesn't let you do unarmed ships to make them even cheaper. So I am going to also build probably 6 or 8 of the cheapest, quickest building ship possible, and that would be the ship's tender gunboat. And then once those are built, it shouldn't take very long, maybe a month or two. You know, we'll build them at like Memphis or Nashville or something, and we'll just like infest this river with little gunboats, just keeping an eye on things, nothing else. So let's go into the Navy view. Looks like I've got 3. This is actually a warship. That is a timber-clad gunboat. So I'm kind of saving him for if I ever actually want to make some sort of combat fleet on the rivers. That won't be for a while, but I'm just going to save him for that. And then this is our one ironclad, CSS Virginia. Can't build any others, but they do give us this one. Obviously, won't use him for that job either. He's still building. 182 days. So yeah, still 6 months before Virginia's ready. So, let's build. We'll do 6 fourth-rate steamers. Which hardly budged our shipyard capacity at all. I'm going to build 6 of those double enders, which are more expensive and should be for their firepower, but they're still not very expensive. Do 6 of those, and I will do 8 of those little bitty tender gunboats, which are only 65K. Well, the most you can do in one batch is 9. And then it rotates around back to 1. So I'm going to build 9 of these for our scouting ships. Okay. So before I built those ships, we were sitting at 18,000 of our 48,000 available shipyard capacity, and it bumped us up to 27. So we didn't use a whole lot of shipyard capacity there. And even though it's a lot of ships, they don't require that much of materials. So I hope I didn't just make a big economic mistake, but I don't think I did. Okay. So plans for the armies are, these guys are just going to basically hang out where they are for now. Reinforce in range of each other if and when McDowell and Patterson want to come back down for more. Okay, Garnet's in kind of decent supply situation again. Condition is back up. He's not on low rations. He's got most of his food back. I think if he comes back up, well, the first thing I want to do, though, is he's still tiny. And I actually had quite a few units earmarked for Garnet's army. And I think they are probably all here now. They are. So some of this cab is going to go to Beauregard and Johnston, but most of these other units are going to go to Garnet's army. That's what I built them for. I'll do that off camera. But once those units come up and have arrived and he regains green readiness, I'm going to move him up to Grafton and kind of establish his spot in this area, and may come over here and take Marietta. I'm gonna for now. Johnson is going to come up here and take Covington, Kentucky. It's part of our Confederate-owned Ohio River program. I bet if he just comes up here, Mansfield should just simply retreat. Let's see if that happens. Price, let's just come up here and establish. Now it would be temporary. Rolla, if no armies are nearby, its ownership is determined by who owns St. Louis. So we would only temporarily take Rolla, but we would also temporarily take that supply depot, allowing this supply depot to kind of refill a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit low. So let's go take some Union supplies and let ours fill back up. And there's quite a bit here. Yeah, go do that. Haven't forgotten the engineers. I think he's done building that, if I can find him. Yeah. So he's done with this telegraph. So his next job is to go put a telegraph over here somewhere around Helena, Arkansas. Off you go. And I want another army to operate in this area. I thought about just using Price to come over here and take Cairo. And he could do that. But then I feel like he'd be kind of tied to Cairo too much and not able to respond to anything over here if they come down and threaten Arkansas. So I want another army for this area. And based on that, another thing I want to do is initially put this Western Department over here at Decatur, Alabama, at a time when the front line was basically along the northern Tennessee border, along the Cumberland River. And Nashville was kind of front line. That's not true anymore. So I'm going to move this Western Department up to Nashville now. Which has the added benefit of being close to a hospital. And I read, not in one of this campaign's videos, but in another campaign's comments, somebody had a really good idea about, you know, you want the hospitals back away from the front line so they're safe, but they also need to be close to the front line because that's where the casualties occur. And you don't really want the army running all the way back to where the hospital is. And the idea was, well, you don't have to. If you've got in most of the battles that I fight, you know, there's usually like 1, 2, maybe 3 brigades at most that really take a disproportionate share of the casualties. Because they're right in the brunt of where the enemy was making an attack or something like that. You know, a lot of brigades come out of even a pretty big battle with fairly light losses. So what can be done is you can have this Western Department back here, right? And maybe have a few brigades in it that you don't farm out north. A battle occurs, there's a couple of brigades that really need some hospital attention. Well, okay, swap them out. Send the fresh brigade forward to the army and send that depleted brigade back to the department next to the hospital. I thought that was a pretty good idea. So that's another good reason to move the Western Department to Nashville. And that is also a pretty good reason to move Eastern Department to Richmond, where there's another hospital. So I'm going to move them up here. Okay, and I have been jibber-jabbering about a lot of stuff for about an hour. But just so we get something done, let's come out here and try to drive this blockading fleet away. Before I do that, I want to make sure that these are all on defensive stance. And the reason for that is if they're all on offensive and I come over here and I engage this blockading fleet, the other guys are going to come out here to reinforce. I don't want that. I don't want one battle. I want 3 separate battles. I think that will do a better job of driving that blockading squadron down in readiness. So I want this squadron to go do its raiding attack. It's going to lose. It's going to retreat. And then I want this squadron to do it. And then so I'm going to keep them on defensive for now so they don't reinforce. But we'll start with New Orleans Squadron. So I'll put him on offensive. And let's send him out here. We're going to have to go find that. It's pretty close to that. And put him on raid stance. This stance for a fleet does not refer to raiding commerce, right? That's what that blockading trade nodes does. This stance is, let me get the tooltip up again. Fleet operates opportunistically against smaller detachments of ships within enemy blockading fleets. Automatically engage any blockading fleets within its command radius, and after the raid, it will disengage. Okay, so this is specifically an anti-blockade raid, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're using it for. Okay, let's roll time here. Did it actually? There we go. Get the little shark icon. That's the rating status. And it said engage within command radius. That's the big one. We don't have to get up close within the combat radius. Once he gets sight of it, he'll go sick on it. Of course, he does have to see it first. And we know it's here somewhere because Biloxi is getting blockaded. Oh, there he goes. Or not. I didn't tell him to go over there. Oh, there's a battle going on. That's interesting. Oh, I just had to zoom in, apparently. Ooh, there's only 4 ships here. Okay, yeah. As I was saying, they're going to lose. Oh. Okay, there's one that's sunk. Oh, and these things are getting wrecked. They're below 50%. I mean, our guys are too, but we're doing a number on this blockading fleet. And they're done. Oh, holy crap, we won that. I did not expect that. The 2nd Gulf Blockading Squadron, that's the Union fleet. They have retreated. Sweet, okay. This may not be... Okay, yeah. I am a lot more optimistic now that we may be able to keep the entire Gulf Coast free of blockade. Feeling pretty good about that. Well, hell, let's try the same thing with this guy. No, that's just one ship. He was intended as a scout. Okay. But we've got 2 fresh squadrons now to kind of come over here and go see if we can do the same thing to this other squadron that is blockading Cedar Key over here. So let's send the Mobile squadron kind of over by Apalachicola for now. I'm putting a very... I know we're close to the end of the episode, but I'm putting a very quick cut in right now. I got to go do something in the house, and I want to do this before ending the episode. I'll be back. All right, then. Before I run time again, let's just take a look around, see what the Union armies are doing. Yeah, he's not there yet. Evansville is not being captured, but I think this army is going to be recapturing Evansville pretty quickly. Well, where did Mansfield run off to? Interesting. Johnston's still on his way to Covington. I just hope Mansfield isn't running over this way somewhere. Okay. And Price is on his... Ah! Not close enough to draw... He is. He's even close enough to start drawing supply from here. That army hasn't moved. How about... Okay. Looks like we've lost sight of where Lyon is. He was somewhere over in this area. We don't see him now. And that is something that, as we get those little gunboat scouts out, could help a little bit if we have some along in here, along the Mississippi. Where's our engineers? Oh, they decided to take the railroad and get to Helena this way. Okay. Even with railroad, that doesn't seem like that would be faster, but I'm not going to tell him to do something different. What's his path? Oh, he wants to take the railroad to Memphis and then use the river to get down to Helena. I'm cool with that. Off you go. A-Bear. I'm pretty sure is how that's pronounced. Is he a Louisianan? Yeah, he is. Yeah, that's A-Bear. Louis A-Bear. Now we can see this guy. Who is not blockading, but it doesn't look like he's retreating. So that was kind of weird. The telegram said that they retreated, we won the battle. However, it's me running back into port, and the Union squadron ain't moving. So, don't quite know how to interpret that. But he's not blockading, and that was our goal. Well, that's odd. Now, these guys are shifting in the raid mode, which makes 0 sense. Because that's specifically an anti-blockade stance. Oh well, I don't think he's hurting anything. Meaning he's not hurting us, so whatever. Okay, let's pop him on offensive and make sure he's away from the... Yeah, put him on raid mode. And just tell him to come on down this way. This is pretty much the biggest blockading squadron in the Union at campaign start. So if we could do that to this squadron, I think we can do it to just about any of them. which has now got me thinking about maybe I do want to invest and do something like this up around Charleston and Wilmington and Norfolk. Norfolk might be a little harder because of Fort Monroe. I got to think on what I want to do about that. Oh, okay. He's found them. Okay, this squadron has got a buttload of ships in it. This may not go as well. I've already lost one steamer. And I'm not seeing the conditions of these ships fall very much. For some reason, they took the big squadron and brought it over to Cedar Key and let one of the smaller ones stay over by Louisiana, which seems odd. But you know what? I'd rather have these guys blockading Cedar Key by itself than blocking Mobile and Biloxi in New Orleans, so fine. Yeah, we are getting hammered here. Hammered. And we're not doing much to... Well... Okay. That's over with. And our guy is retreating to Tampa. Fine. Mobile squadron retreating. Yeah. The engagement was desperate, with us being thoroughly outgunned and outmaneuvered by the superior enemy. And that'll help the Union national morale a little bit. 3 sunk. And the condition of my fleet is alarming. Alright, well. So that said, and they're still blockading. They didn't really get hurt very much. But we can't see it. But their readiness was driven down. If this were over by New Orleans and we had 2 more fresh fleets, we could run them out there and hit them too. Probably with similar results, but probably drive his condition down enough where it would be not blockading. So that was a little bit closer to kind of the idea that I thought would be happening over here, because I thought that this blockading fleet would be the strong one in the Gulf, and it looks like maybe they flipped them around. But, okay, well, I think that will do for this episode. I know it's been a little bit longer and it's all been campaign map and not too much going on, but I think covered a lot of material about the new direction of the overall strategy for the Confederacy, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So if you like what I'm doing here, leave a like, leave a comment, but at any rate, thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate it.